Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that the sun no longer rises in the east. The seasons arrive at random, might last for months. Rivers forget their course, fire no longer rises upward, and truth itself has no meaning. What would remain of the universe? Not much. Because beneath everything that we see, there is something more fundamental than any individual god. Something that gives order to existence itself. The ancient Vedic seers gave this mysterious principle a name, Ritta. And perhaps the most fascinating thing about it is that this very idea appears in Indian thought before Dharma became the great moral concept we know today. But what exactly was Ritta? Was it a law? A cosmic force? Truth? The order of nature? Or something far deeper? To understand it, we have to go back to the oldest layers of the Vedic imagination. The Vedic seers looked at the world around them. They saw the sun rise, the moon change, the seasons return, rain fall from the heavens, rivers flow towards the sea, fire rise upwards, and the stars move across the night sky. To us, these are ordinary observations. But to the Vedic mind, there was a profound question hidden within them. Why does the universe behave with such extraordinary regularity? Why does tomorrow resemble today? Why does spring follow winter? Why does dawn return? Why does the cosmos not simply dissolve into chaos? The Vedic answer was not initially expressed through a mathematical equation. It was expressed through a sacred idea, Ritta. Ritta represented the principle by which things happen in their proper order. It was associated with cosmic regularity, truth, and the proper functioning of existence. The universe was not merely there, it was ordered, and that order could be aligned with or violated. This is where things become interesting, and that order could be aligned or violated. We often translate Ritta as cosmic order, and that is useful. But it can be misleading if we imagine a modern legal system. Ritta was not simply a list of commandments written somewhere in heaven. It was closer to the underlying pattern that makes an ordered universe possible. Think about fire. Fire rises. Think about the sun. It follows its course. Now think about the seasons. They return. Think about truth. A truthful statement corresponds to reality. Different things, yet all participate in a larger principle of rightness and order. And that is why Ritta is so fascinating. It connects the physical world, the ritual world, and the moral world. The same cosmos that had an order also demands that human beings live truthfully within it. Now we come to one of the most beautiful Vedic pairings, Ritta and Satya. Ritta and Satya, order and truth. The Rigveda gives us an extraordinary statement in its famous creation hymn, Ritta and Satya, and then it describes their emergence from tapas, followed by night, the cosmic waters, the air, and the ordered structure of the heavens. The imagery is extraordinary. The universe does not emerge as meaningless chaos. It emerges into pattern. Night appears, the water appear, time appears, the sun and the moon are established. Heaven, earth, and the intermediate realm are arranged. The cosmos becomes ordered, and the world standing near the beginning of the creation vision is Ritta. The Vedic hymns frequently associate Ritta with the great cosmic deities, and one of the most important is Varuṇa. Varuṇa is not merely a later Hindu god of the ocean. His Vedic character is much more profound. He is associated with the vast cosmic order, with truth, and with the moral consequences of violating that order. In the Vedic imagination, Varuṇa sees what human beings cannot see. Nothing is truly hidden. The stars move within order, the heavens operate within order. Human beings too are expected to remain within order. And when a person strays from that order, the problem is not simply you broke a rule, it is something deeper. You have moved yourself out of alignment with Rita. Now imagine a world in which truth is not merely a social virtue. Imagine that truth is part of the architecture of reality. The line becomes more than deception. It becomes a disturbance of order. And this is why the relationship between Satya and Rita becomes so important. Satya is truth. Rita is the larger order within which truth participates. The Vedic seers repeatedly connect the two, and this gives us an entirely different way of thinking about morality. Morality is not merely do this because someone commanded it. Instead, live in accordance with the order of reality. Now, this is a very different idea. There is another layer. The Vedic world was deeply connected to Yajña, the sacrificial ritual. At first glance, sacrifice can seem like a collection of ancient rituals, fire, offerings, mantras, priests, oblations. But underneath the ritual system was an idea of cosmic reciprocity and order. Humans offer, the gods respond, rain comes, food grows, life continues. The ritual becomes a symbolic participation in the larger order of the cosmos. In this worldview, human beings were not outside nature. They were participants in a cosmic system, and the purpose was not simply to take from the universe. It was to remain in right relation within it. And this is perhaps the most fascinating question. If Rita represents order, then what represents disorder? The Vedic tradition frequently contrasts Rita with ideas associated with falsehood, disorder, and what is not aligned with the proper order. And this creates a profound Vedic tension. Rita versus Anartha. Order versus what is contrary to order. Truth versus falsehood. Alignment versus deviation. The universe is not portrayed as a machine where everything automatically works forever. Human beings have agency. They can act wrongly, they can speak falsely, they can violate the proper order. And therefore, living becomes a question of alignment. And now we reach the bridge to later Indian philosophy. Centuries after the earliest Vedic hymns, another word becomes enormously important: Dharma. Now today, Dharma can mean duty, righteousness, moral law, the proper way of living, even the nature or essential function of something. But we should be careful. Rita and Dharma are not identical words. Rather, the later concept of Dharma develops within an Indian intellectual world that had already been thinking deeply about cosmic order, truth, duty, and right action. The question gradually shifts from what is the order of the cosmos towards how should human beings live within that order. And this is where Dharma becomes increasingly important. When the connection becomes fascinating, Rita asks, what makes the cosmos order? Dharma increasingly asks, what is the right way for beings to live? But Indian thought does not stop there. The Vedic tradition eventually turns the question inward. The sages begin asking, if there is an order outside, what is the principle within? The cosmos has an underlying reality. What is the reality of consciousness? If the universe is governed by an order, who am I within that order? And this movement eventually leads towards the greatest Upanishadic questions. What is Brahman? What is Atman? And what is the ultimate reality? The journey is extraordinary. From observing the order of the stars, to questioning the order of human life, to questioning the nature of consciousness itself. And perhaps this is the most important point. Rita is not simply another deity standing beside Indra, Agni, Varuṇa, and the others. It is better understood as a principle of order deeply embedded in the Vedic worldview. The gods themselves are frequently portrayed as acting in relation to Rita. They uphold it, protect it, move according to it, and participate in it, which creates a fascinating possibility. Perhaps the deepest Vedic question was never merely which god controls the universe. Perhaps it was what makes the universe itself intelligible and ordered. And the ancient answer was Rita. You might wonder, why should a concept from thousands of years ago matter to us? Because we still live inside a world of patterns. The earth turns, the seasons change, life is born and dies. Actions produce consequences. Relationships depend upon trust. Societies depend upon truth. And our own minds become chaotic when our actions constantly contradict what we know to be true. The ancient Vedic insight was not humans could control the universe. It was almost opposite. We are participants in something larger than ourselves. The question is not, how do I force reality to obey me? The question is, how do I bring myself into alignment with reality? And that is a question that remains timeless. Thousands of years ago, a Vedic seer looked at the sky and saw molten stars. He saw order, he saw recurrence, he saw truth woven into the structure of existence, and he gave that mystery a name, Ritta. Perhaps Ritta was the order of the cosmos. Perhaps it was the order of truth. Perhaps it was a principle connecting nature, ritual, and human action. And perhaps the deeper lesson was never about controlling that order. It was about recognizing it. Because the Vedic sages eventually turned their gaze away from the heavens and inward and asked the question that would shape Indian philosophy for millennia. If there is an order that holds the universe together, what is the reality within me that is one with it? That journey from Ritta to Dharma to Atman to Brahma was one of the most extraordinary journeys in the history of Indian thought. And it began with a simple realization. The universe is not chaos, it has an order, and the ancient Vedic seers called that order Ritta. If you like the contents of my channel, don't forget to subscribe to Eternal Tandav for more such unraveling stories across the cosmos. For the time being, thank you.